So some people like these self-sealing slash soldering, self-soldering butt connectors, I guess if you want to call them that. But they have a problem. If you don't get them hot enough, they're not going to solder, and you're going to get a poor solder or a cold solder, if you want to call it that. And that can be a real problem if it's like an airbag circuit, especially, or high current. And this was an airbag circuit. They had modified the vehicle as a handicapped vehicle, so the doors were welded together, door opened, and they added length to the circuit. That adds resistance, but the real problem was this butt connector system. Rather than just solder it with the barrel uninsulated and then heat shrink it, they did this. I'm assuming for speed and cost, maybe. I think it's more about just being faster in someone's mind, but look at these solder joints. They're completely not hot enough, and that's almost as bad as, throwing dirt in the mix, because that flux hasn't fully melted, the solder hasn't fully melted, and now you have resistance. But on an ohm meter, it looked okay, but you cut it open, it does not look good. Okay, so right here, if you look close here, you'll see this is one of those self-solder connectors where it has heat shrink and a solder ring built into it. And this one actually kind of soldered, not fully, but it started to solder in there. And so I've got a power supply and a light bulb, and we're going to check the reading while I wiggle the wire. And if you get back out a little bit, I'm wiggling the wire here. So I'm manipulating it, and I'll have a 22 millivolt drop. I've got a power supply feeding the bulb. This connection is in series with that power supply and bulb, headlight bulb. So I've got about 4 or 5 amps going through this connection, but 20 millivolts seems to be pretty steady. So let's switch over in a sec here to this other one, which I cut the heat shrink off of it. And you can see that that ring never really melted. And we also have two types of wire. We have aluminum and copper. So let's see what happens. So if you go closer to the meter, you can see that I'm manipulating this wire, and it's not a ton of resistance change, but we do have some. And this is such a sensitive circuit, the airbag circuitry, that you don't want any resistance at all. And keep in mind, there was no resistance read on this port connection with the ohm meter. So you have to be aware that using your ohm meter may not always be the most accurate test. Obviously on an airbag circuit, you can't load it like I was.